This is a study in presence, where legacy is worn and becoming is bespoke. In this first series, we celebrate Black creatives who dress not for the moment, but for the movement.
I'm Kat LeBlanc. Welcome to the Superfine Series.
Shaquita, welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you decided to come on. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited. I love your style. When I found you online, I said, I have to have her on this segment. I know we've been following each other for a little bit.
Yeah.
Your style brings me so much joy. How did you come to your style?
Oh, well, my style is very uniquely me. So it's really all about how I feel that day. So honestly, it's been like that since I was a little girl. I always used like my personal style as my therapy because I was bullied as a child. So a lot of times I would just like express myself like through my outfits.
So, how would you say you're feeling today with all these polka dots? What does it mean?
Honestly, I'm a bit obsessed with polka dots, spheres in general. Like I have them all around my house. And I think that probably comes from my love of the planets.
Okay.
I'm a little bit of a like science geek. I used to study the planets as a child. So I didn't know if I was going to go into fashion or if I was going to be like some kind of astronomer, but I had like a million telescopes. That was my thing. Still kind of is my thing.
That's awesome. And I can relate because
Really?
I have a bio degree.
What?
So we're both science fashionistas.
Yes, I love it.
Can you share a moment when your style challenged stereotypes or shifted a conversation about identity or professionalism?
I feel like my style does that every day. First thing that comes to mind is before I became a mom. I think it was maybe like 2015 or 14, something like that. And I was in between jobs and I was trying to find another like fashion job. So I went through a temp agency. And at the time, I wasn't bald. I had shaved sides and I had faux locks. So I would wear like my faux locks to one side. Yes, I used to have this same hairstyle as well. So I had a nose piercing at the time. And of course, I have tattoos, but I was always like super buttoned up like when it came to the professional world. I wore suits all the time. You know, they were either printed or bright or whatever, but I was still in a suit, which is not against
Right.
policy, right? But there was a job that had potentially come up, and there was always like a secretary person who would contact you on behalf of the agent who represents you to say, hey, we have this job, are you interested? So I did receive an email like that, and then the agent had responded but clicked respond all instead of just to the secretary, and her email read, please don't send her to that job, she's not presentable enough.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So I called the agency because I was like, hey, I'm not really sure if this email was meant for me, but I saw it. So then the agent then contacts me trying to explain herself and said that she wants to like meet in person so that we can talk further. That day I did meet up with her
Okay.
to speak because again, I didn't know any better. I'm young. I'm 22 years old. And you know, I still remember what I wore to the meeting. I had this beautiful vinyl. It was like a shiny black skirt in that 1950s style shape. And then I wore like a cropped like black blazer, and then I had on just a simple like cropped white button-up shirt, had my faux locks, had my, you know, my briefcase, and then I just wore like a black like cropped booty. Very, very chic, very simple, but still very me. And I sized her up because I had seen her once before, but I was just like, you know, here she is telling me that I'm not presentable enough for the job because I have faux locks and I have a shaved head. And I'm actually dressed better than she is, in my opinion. Like, I wouldn't,
Period.
if I was the CEO or the hiring manager or whoever, I wouldn't hire you based off of your appearance. But
That
here you
part.
are judging me for being pure black, and that's fine. That's not a crime. It doesn't mean anti-white. It doesn't mean that I'm not presentable enough. It doesn't mean anything. Like, it doesn't even say whether or not I can do the job. You said not to send me because I wasn't presentable enough. What does that even mean? And then her explanation was that the company is a bit more conservative. And in my mind, I thought, to whose standards? Because in my opinion, based off of how I dress now, I was dressed extremely conservative.
Well, it wasn't just cut, it was also color. It was also material. It had to be corporate boring.
Right. So,
But
um,
it was bringing too much life.
right. So it let me further know that these are the spaces that I do not want to be in. It's not that I didn't belong in them. It was, these are not the spaces for me.
I agree.
Yeah.
I've come to that space now, and I teach my students and my kids this. I said back in the day, or they could check social media to see what we look like.
Right.
They went by our names. And so
Mhm.
I used to get all the interviews because I have an Irish first name and a French last name. So they didn't know that I was black. And they
Yeah.
were surprised when they call my name. And I'm like, here. And they're like, wait, they say my name again. I'm like, yeah, here.
Right.
You
Right.
know, we had to hide the fro and put on straighter, acceptable hair, navy blue or black suit, try to.
Yes.
And now I tell my kids and my students, don't try to fit into any environment that would never accept you in the first place. And I understand that some of us are meant to break the mold and be in those spaces. But for the most part, I want to be in a space that's going to accept me for me and that values me, because I don't want to go every day wondering who's trying to stab my back.
Right. Right.
I think we've gotten to a space where now it's illegal to discriminate against our natural hair,
Yeah.
dreadlocks. How have you seen that? Have you seen that affect you in any way in the spaces that you try to move in? How have you navigated that?
So I will go back to that for a second, because I wasn't as wise as I am now. So that interaction with her, it made me dumb myself down a lot. So I ended up taking out the faux locks at some point, because I was actively trying to get a job.
Yeah.
And I started wearing wigs because I just felt that nobody would accept my shaved head or whatever. So then it started to trickle down to my name. So then I thought, okay, well, they're not calling me back because they already know that I'm black because my name is Shaquita. So I started changing my name on my resume to Catrice, which is my middle name. And that's when I did start to get callbacks. I still wasn't getting hired, but people were starting to call back when I started changing my name on my resume. So that affected me for a very long time. So I was pretty much going by an alias. I ended up getting hired at an insurance company on Wall Street. I'll never forget. It's funny now, but back then, my husband and I used to take like the same train. And one day we were walking through the train station and I was wearing my wig on my way to work or whatever. And there was like this black guy walking by and he was like, take that wig off. And I was so upset because I was like, I knew he's talking to me, but I felt like I was upset at the time. But now I'm like, I feel like that was God. I feel like that was God telling me, like, no, Shaquita, at some point, when is this gonna stop?
So
when are you gonna stop hurting yourself?
That was so embarrassing.
It was so embarrassing.
Couldn't have whispered, take the wig off.
Right.
Everybody.
But it was time. It really was time. So I kid you not, that following week, I called HR and I was like, look, I know when you guys hired me, this is the way my hair was. But I just want you to know that I have shaved sides. I have a mohawk. And she was like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. And, I stopped wearing the wig. I started wearing my hair the way that yours is.
Happened when you went to work that first day?
So I don't even remember, to be honest. I don't even remember going what it was like when I wore it the first time. But at that point, I felt like I was taking the proper steps to try to gain my identity back, because it had left me completely. I was not looking like myself. I was not behaving like myself. None of Shaquita was present. And all of that to make $1, it was not worth it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made the proper changes to come back full circle. So yeah.
So this year's Met Gala theme.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. What was your impression when you first heard the theme?
I was actually happy. I was happy because the theme kind of made me feel seen. My entire life, I've been obsessed with menswear, but also menswear for women. There is nothing sexier to me than a woman putting on a tailored suit. There's always like this interpretation of a power suit. And of course, it's always either like in a bright color, but still has like this feminine kind of like vibe to it. If you've ever like put your hands on a men's suit, like a real tailored men's suit, it's very different from the fashion industry's interpretation of a woman's power suit. It's very different. So when a woman puts on like a real men's like tailored suit and like tailor it to her body, it's nothing else to be said.
I'm loving this. Okay, so if you were to attend the Met Gala this year, what would your outfit look like?
I would do a tux all day long, but not the like kind of black tie tux. I don't know if you've ever seen the tuxedos where it's like short in the front and it has the tails in the back. I would do something like that, but I would bring a bit of like street style in it. So I would do it in denim, probably full denim on denim look, but like a denim tux. And I would probably do like a top hat of some sort. I would either do like a pant that sits lower on the waist and then a long line corset underneath the suit, and a clean white collar shirt and a tie, probably printed tie to offset everything. That's my thought.
I'm gonna hold you to it, Met Gala or not. I want to see that. So I want to talk about your hats. Tell us about your brand, how that got started, and yeah, just tell us the story.
So my brand, it was cooked up in my head many years ago. I want to say the minute I stepped into the costume shop in college around 2006. I studied costume design in college. That's what my degree is in. The costume shop was like a magical kind of place because it can transform you to so many different eras and time periods. And that's really what my love of fashion comes from, is like different stages of fashion, not just things that are, times that are current. One of my favorites was the 1950s. The 50s was, the era of, housewives. Everything with me is done with intention. I fell in love with the pillbox hats, so I like, hats just sitting like right on the top of my head, even if it's like street style. That's always the way I'm going to wear them. But I learned to make hats through costume because, when you're designing costumes, you have to, not only you have to be able to design, but you have to also be able to make these like period pieces. So my first hat was a wide brimmed hat that I did for a 1940s piece. Wasn't my favorite era, but I made my first hat around 2006, somewhere around there. Yes. That's where I got my love for like millinery. So once I started having my shows in New York, I just was making hats in my living room to like put in my shows, but they weren't technically like sellable to the public.
Okay.
Like this lampshade was a hat in one of my shows. This is all hand painted, and as you can see, it has polka dots. That's just my thing. But I was wearing vintage like pillbox hats all the time, and everybody was like, well, why don't you have a hat line? Why don't you have a hat line? And I was able to find manufacturing, and then that's how all of that went. But before I started like selling hats on my website, I was doing apparel. So that's where the fashion shows come in. So
Dandyism often walks the fine line between rebellion and refinement. How does your work reflect that duality, especially through styling and designing your hats?
I guess even just from my description of what I would wear to the Met Gala, the refinement would always come from the tailoring and, having direct references from the time period. But the rebellion would be doing this in denim, wearing, the corset with it, or even, my version of a top hat. Rebellion is always going to be you going against the grain, what was supposedly normal during that time, and you put your own kind of stank on it and make it personal and tailored to yourself. I think that is what a rebellion is all about, is letting people know that it's okay to be different. It's okay to not follow what is considered to be normal.
And I love how you're so open and you share your journey, not just through in fashion and style, but through motherhood. Everything you're talking about, I know that you're raising some amazing human beings. You definitely inspire me in so many ways. So I am really grateful that you did this interview and that you're telling your story for the world to see.
I appreciate that. I do.
Do you have advice for the moms and entrepreneurs?
I would just say stay the course. I am nowhere near where I hope to be in my journey, but I know that my kids fuel me, but they also make me think, like, why would I do this? But I feel like somebody has to be the blueprint. I think about myself working in corporate fashion, and there are some things that I experienced and I endured that I had no business experiencing. This is nothing against my parents, because again, you work a job to pay the bills and what have you. But I just thought about if my children had told me, they experienced something that was similar to what I experienced, I would tell them that, like, they're worth more and that they don't have to work that job. My children will grow up knowing their worth because they've seen the hustle, they've seen the struggle, they've seen the success, they've seen it all, and they know, like, hard work pays off, and that they are brilliant enough and beautiful enough and smart enough. They can be successful without having to endure those kinds of experiences.
Yes, mama, yes. That note, ladies and gentlemen, this is why she is the epitome of a dandy. Your identity belongs to you and you alone, and you're going to take it or leave it. And I love that you stepped into your full self and now you just inspired the world. I am so proud of you. I'm so happy that you're on the show with me. I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.